Hi guys, I'm back as promised. So today I thought I speak on a topic very important and dear to me, and that's business. I did one of these videos
so let's get down to business.
Ages ago, like when I was a lot younger. I'm 28 now. I started YouTube when I was about 19, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 19 or 18. I think it was 19. And at the time I started YouTube, I also started my own business. So my hair extension business. But oh my goodness, like I was so naive back then, and there were a lot of things that I was going it for the fun of it, and it was just always my dream. I really am so passionate about business because I believe like with business it just allows you the freedom to be creative. It allows you to express yourself, and also in return for that you get income, and it just makes you explore. You meet a lot of people. There's so many benefits to business. It affords you free time, blah blah blah. But I think what I didn't know back then, me being quite naive, was you know, you really need to separate creativity from business, because business can be quite logical, and it's really hard for a creative to be a creative, and but you kind of have to mix the two, because if you want to be creative, then you're kind of doing it for yourself with the hopes that someone else would like it. And then if you're going into more business, it's almost about other people. So it's like, do other people want this? And it's like meeting people's needs. And then because you're meeting people's needs, you kind of have to subtract your own interest from it with the hopes that it would be profitable. You know, you kind of have to think money, because lack of money is the killer of all creativity. Because I mean, come on, think about it. If you have a business, and but also vice versa as well, and if you're not making money, you're not happy, and if you're not in a happy state, it's hard for you to really create something that's really that's amazing, right? So I suppose the first thing that I did learn from owning a business and starting a business is to some extent separate your own interest from the business's interest. The second thing I also learned is do not be too attached to an idea. Like, move on. If it's not working, move on. I was so hung up on, no, this is how it has to be, and this is how I imagined it in my head. And like just growing up and working in corporate, and also reading a ton of entrepreneurship books, I noticed that, and even just following shows like Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, you realize that actually you're so creative. Like if you started a business, it means you're already creative enough to create something. Do you know what I mean? So there's no point being hung up on a particular idea, except it's actually solving a major problem in the world. If you're just like selling a generic product where, you know, it's accessible and things like that, I advise like don't be too attached to it, and like do something that you can channel your creativity to, but it can also reward you greatly. I wish I had known this when I was younger, but at the end of the day, everything is all a learning curve, and I kind of had to go through the experiences of failing, as well as, you know, being in corporate and seeing how corporates and corporations also fail, and actually and it's emotional actually, and it's all very personal, because you just feel and think this is going to work because it looks good from my eyes, but you have to kind of assess it on a larger scale. Does it look good in other people's eyes, and would they pay money for it? Do you know what I mean? So it's just one of those things. And but again, like I said, because I'm aware of it now, there are things that I can do to be better and to change. Okay, so the other one is not seeking help. I mean, everybody feels, especially when you've been put down in the past, or you've been disappointed in the past by other people, you might think, actually I can do it all by myself. Like, part of being an entrepreneur is you being a leader, and you being able to direct people and say, actually owning up to certain weaknesses of yours, saying I cannot do this, therefore I need help. Like, there's so many things that you can outsource now. There's so many things you can just say, actually, if you're doing a product-based business, you could just tell like your family or someone or friends to say, actually, can you do the fulfillment please, and I'll give you this percentage on this. Like, it's actually leading in the right way, because when you know how to get people to help you, then it's easier for you to expand, and it's easier for you to explore other talents. That's what I noticed, rather than, I mean, something that you would have done within the space of an hour, because you're doing it all by yourself, it take like a week, you know. So it's knowing how to ask for help, and also knowing how to outsource that. The other thing, so the next lesson I have learnt from being an entrepreneur is you must learn paid advertising. End of. I mean, every single corporation that's birthed, or every single business that's really successful today, although there have been businesses that have been lucky to not pay for advertising, and pay for advertising in different forms, in sense of influencer marketing, in the sense of TV ads, or Facebook ads, or Google ads. I mean, there's so many. There are a plethora of different avenues and forms of which you could advertise. But being able to, I look at it this way, right? So if you go to a fair, right? If you go to a fair where, let's say like a hair fair, right? People specifically come to a hair fair to look at hair products. There are different types of people that come. So it could be hairstylists who are looking for hair products for curly hair. It could be hairstylists looking for products for hairstylists looking for hair extensions. People have different needs, but you're positioned in a place where a lot of people want what it is you're offering, right? So you're likely to get a sale depending on how well you sell, how well you market your product. So in the same way, that's how paid advertising works. So if your paid advertising is reaching a certain amount of people, and so like if a hair fair attracts like 10,000 people, of those 10,000 people, 10% could be your ideal customer. And then it's like, of the 10%, let's say 1,000 people want hair extensions, but then there's 7 other competitors of yours. So 7 of the competitors are fighting for the sale of those 1,000 customers. Whereas online you're exposed to a huge market, and you can really attract your ideal customer and sell them on stuff. Okay, so learning paid advertising and attracting at least 10,000 people to your product, with the hopes at least that 10%, I think people, at least 10% would be interested, not necessarily buy, but let's say a nice conversion of 2%. You have to learn paid advertising. And that leads me on to my next point, is there's no point in starting a business if you don't know about sales and marketing. Sales and marketing has a really negative connotation. I don't understand why, because everything about life is governed around sales. Like we're constantly selling ourselves for something that we want to receive back. Like we put ourselves out there with the hopes that we can attract the right person. It's like a form of sale. So if you don't know how to sell, and you don't necessarily have to go through via the traditional route of going around knocking on people's door, please buy my product, because I mean, who's going to listen to you? But you want to learn like good sales and marketing strategies that won't be a detriment to your personality, or you could outsource it to someone else. But if you don't know the fundamentals of sales and marketing, whether be it paid advertising or influencer marketing, or knowing how to communicate with potential advertisers and your potential customers, then yeah, being in business is going to be quite problematic, especially in the long term. Even if you're lucky now, like you will not be lucky in the long term. But so yeah, that's one of the lessons. Another lesson that I have learned is the power of being of communication and being so customer centric and consumer centric. And it's the way I look at business, and like people always say business is usually a reflection of yourself and your habits. And if, for example, if you don't know how to communicate in your relationships with people, it's going to be difficult to communicate with your customers, because business is about nourishing relationships, you know, and in return, like people will come back. You get a really high customer return rate. So that's one thing I've learned, and I'm going to take this forward now, because before I thought I could put things down, and it's so important to all these things that you may have not done when you were younger. Be organized, be focused, be this. it is so important when you're running a business. It's like business is the pinnacle of good habits. I can't stress that enough. And like I said, it's something that I would apply now, because I have to be super organized in my life, and I have to be in good shape, good health, good emotions to even tackle just what business has to offer, because the challenges are crazy. And that leads me on to my next point, is just making sure that good health, like you're able to, mindset in business is everything. It's like not expecting that results will come immediately, but it's constantly striving and pushing for actions, good habits that will attract people, you know, and attract the right people and attract the sale that you want. And it's like a constant grind, and you go through a lot of challenges and emotional ups and downs and roller coasters, that you have to be spiritually strong and mentally as well, because the only thing that you're holding on to is hope and trust. But also, putting hope and trust aside, you also have to know, you have to understand the market. You have to have the basic fundamentals of audience and understanding your industry, and how you can and how it is that you can be profitable. Where are you positioned in the industry? So yeah, that is going to lead me on to my next point, is knowing the size of audience, understanding your industry. You need to understand how many people are, how many sized audience do you have, like where are you going to fit in within this audience, what's your unique selling point, how are you going to sell to people already within the niche, like what are people's needs, are you going to come in, what strategies do you have in terms of entry of the market. These are all the things like you really need to consider. Pricing is so important. Like all these factors are super important, and they're not hard. It just takes a bit of research, but enjoyable research, because you get to a point where you start understanding things. Like I did some research on personal computers just out of my own interest, and realized, oh my goodness, this industry is so big. It's like such a massive industry. And you look at the top 5 players, top 5 companies in the industry. And why are they top 5 companies? Because their sales are measured based on the volume they're getting each month. And then as a result of, let's say, the top 5 companies or the top 10 companies, then you're able to really calculate how much the market is worth, you know, and based on the volumes of sales that, you know. And sometimes when you go into an industry, or going into business, you need to know that people want this. If you go into an industry without knowing that people want this, it's a waste of time. You're gonna get depressed, and if you're not seeing the returns that you want, mate, like it would literally figure. Because sometimes, I mean, watching things like Shark Tank, I get as frustrated as the investors, and that's because of the knowledge I have now. Because the investors, people look at investors as like, sometimes people come on Shark Tank and Dragon's Den with the hopes that the investors would just invest in them because, you know, they expect the investors to invest on an emotional perspective because of what you're going through and this idea, and I grinded so hard. As an investor, I'm not thinking whether you're grinding hard. I'm thinking whether there's a demand for this product and I can get a decent return on my investment. This is not a pity party. Like, it's about, is there a huge market for your product, right? Is there demand for it? And what are your marketing strategies to attract that demand? Okay, and what are your forecasts? What are you forecasting in terms of growth? Like, what are you doing in terms of putting it in front of people's faces? When you completely extract the emotions out of business, right? And you look at it for what it really is, mate, then you know how to really tackle, like, you stop being used by it and you start using it to your own advantage. But those are the key lessons that I have learned being in business. I'm still learning, but I believe, like, in the long I believe, like, society values are changing right now, and millennials are becoming entrepreneurs, and these are just the basics that we need to learn, because even the corporates and corporations are not as stable and secure as we once thought. I mean, doing your own thing and being able to predict and make your own income is what's in trend right now. So if you are thinking about going into business, then yeah, just talk about your experiences, and I'm happy to do a part 2 video into like. But yeah guys, that is the end of this video, and if you have any questions, if you have any questions, please do let me know in the comments below. And I know I did promise that I was going to speak more on investments, and I was going to do more of a part 2 video, and I will do that. That is coming up. It does require a lot of research, and I don't want to be giving out any information that's not going to be useful to you. But yeah, I will catch you in my next video. I'll see you guys later. Ciao.